This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider.
Hi, good morning. Darren, look over there. We're going to lock this up in the Sheffield stand here.
Practicing what he preaches, Boris Johnson cycled to work this morning. He was on his bike heading for a press call in Beeston, where he reminisced with fellow enthusiasts about his days on the open roads before becoming PM.
I used to be able to cycle everywhere. When I was Mayor of London, and there was no problem at all. Nobody ever threatened me, well, except one chap did.
The Prime Minister's unveiled what he's calling a £2 billion package to get more people on their bikes. There'll be protected lanes, tax cuts for e-bikes, and £50 repair vouchers for those pulling old cycles out of the shed and discovering they're not quite in the same shape they were when they went in there several months ago. It's all well and good, says our editorial column, but it's worthless without action on the roads to back it all up.
There's a gap between splashing cash with a grand announcement and making sure that practical, lasting reform takes place to actually deliver the substance of what's promised. Nowhere is that more important than in London, where as many as possible of the pop-up cycle lanes created during lockdown need to be made permanent with physical segregation. More roads should be made access only to reduce vehicle numbers to a minimum. Others should be closed altogether to help create safer routes, and politicians must not cave in if motorists protest about inconvenience to their journeys. The main reason is that cycling is not only good for us, but good for everyone, not least our children who for too long have been forced to grow up in a city with too much pollution and potentially long-term harm to their health.
Well, with me now is Simon Munk from the London Cycling Campaign. And Simon, there's a lot of money going into getting people cycling, so this must be the biggest opportunity for years. Is enough, though, really being done to take it?
Yes, but not fast enough and not bold enough, but yes. I mean, and it's not just an opportunity. I think there is a threat here as well, which is that, with people, particularly in London, with people trying to avoid public transport for the foreseeable future, even if social distancing rules change, even if things change, the signs are that there are a whole bunch of people not going back to work and very wary of public transport. So then what happens is the people that do need to go back to work, do need to go back to offices, but do need to also get around in London. It's pretty much down to the car, private hire vehicles, taxis, whatever, or cycling. We cannot afford even a few % of people to start getting into cars that previously were on public transport. We need those people to be on bikes or in, scooting or whatever, some way of getting around that doesn't involve, a combustion engine, basically. We want that opportunity seized. It isn't quite being seized yet,
If there's increased traffic on London's roads, will things like a £50 voucher to repair that old bike you've had in the shed be enough to get people back on bikes? Or does most of the investment have to go on making those roads safer?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm the infrastructure campaigner for London Cycling Campaign. So kind of to some extent, I would say this, but yes, the short answer is we know absolutely from every bit of international evidence we have, that the cities that see a mass level of cycling are the cities that have a coherent network of safe routes. If we want mums, kids, my grandma, whoever to get on a bike, we need those safe, coherent network. We need people to be able to come out their front door and feel fairly safe riding from A to B. Obviously, and we've seen, I went to drop in my bike at my local bike shop and got turned away at the door with a queue of about 50 people. And when I said, can I get my bike serviced, they kind of laughed at me and said, yeah, in September, and that was where they're at. So we've seen a huge number of people come out and pull bikes out of sheds and, garages and whatever to get cycling again during this crisis for fitness, to get around, etc. We've seen, I think, tripling of cycling on weekends and things like that, kind of huge spikes in cycling during the week as well, so, but as the cars are coming back, the cycling's disappearing. And that's a very clear kind of correlation. So yeah, we need those vouchers. We need people to obviously get repairs for their bikes. We need people. There are a whole bunch of people who face barriers, not just in terms of safety, but in terms of their access to bikes, their access to parking bikes, things like that. There is a whole bunch of ancillary stuff, but the core of this is we'll get most people cycling. We'll get a lot of people cycling if we just provide really safe routes.
After decades of the London cycling campaign existing, does it feel like there's a change now? Is it possible for us to go back, or is this cycling is now the way forward?
All the stuff that we've been doing has kind of come to fruition and is coming to fruition now, which is great, and we're really proud of that. But we're also really proud, in a way, of the leap. But at the same time, again, all of this comes in a response to multiple crises, and it's taken a kind of pandemic to actually get them to do this stuff. And we're still at a point where, the Dutch spend £20 a head on cycling per year. The government is now talking about £8, £9 per head, So we're still at a point where, and £27 billion for road spending. So while we're talking about £2 billion for walking cycling. So we're still at a point where, while the optics are right, and we are taking, this is a big leap and it shouldn't be underestimated, at the same time, there is a real sense that they still need to go further, and we're still having to push to get action when actually, if we don't take action now, we're in real trouble.